Hello, it's Kathy Salisbury, the director of the Ambler Arboretum of Temple University. And I'm coming to you today from a very snowy campus, which to me is very exciting because I like snow. Those of you who have been listening for a while since last March maybe know that already. And so what I thought I'd do today is show you a little bit around campus, but talk about another phenomenon that we get to see in the winter here. And right now we're facing West Hall, which is where our administrative offices are. I'm standing in between West Hall and the pool. We do have an outdoor pool on campus, which is used by students as part of their recreation facilities during normal times. And the portion that we're standing in here right now is called the oak canopy. So we have two areas here on the center portion of campus that are dedicated to comparing and contrasting plants that look the same. And so we have the oak canopy, where we have a wide variety of oak trees and are planting new oak tree species so that students have the opportunity to compare and contrast what these oaks look like, because they can look very similar and be hard to tell apart. So it's nice to have them next to each other so you can compare and contrast. The other one is called the maple canopy, and that's over in front of the Learning Center, where we're trying to achieve the same goals. So here in the oak canopy, you can notice that these leaves are still hanging on, right? So if you take wrong way. I'm still practicing with my technology. So if you take a look up here, you can see there's lots of leaves still hanging on this oak tree. And this is something that's common on oaks, especially young oaks, and it's also common on beech trees too. And this term for these leaves hanging on is called marcescence. And so what you can look for when you go on a hike or a walk is you can look for these plants that are holding on to their leaves. And we'll point you to another one over here. You can see there's another oak hanging on to its leaves. And a lot of times it's the lower leaves that are hanging tight onto the branches. And it's on younger trees. So here you see the younger branches hanging onto their leaves, and the older branches, not so much leaves. And so again, this is common with oaks. So when you're taking a walk around the woods or just around the neighborhood, take a look for these plants that are holding onto their leaves. And this is different than evergreen leaves. So evergreens stay green and they held onto their leaves green through the season. The oaks, they actually turn brown, so the leaves are no longer photosynthesizing, but they are still hanging on. And one of the things I love about this is that scientists aren't really sure why plants do have this characteristic of marcescence. One thing that is interesting to note is that the plants that tend to do this, the oaks, and here we have beech trees that are doing this too. Young beech trees will hang on to their leaves. So one of the characteristics that these plants have in common is they're in similar families with evergreen cousins in different parts of the world. And so some scientists hypothesize that these trees are hanging onto their leaves because it's just in their genetics to hang onto their leaves, because they have somewhere in their genetic background evergreen and that ability to hang onto their leaves. So there's also other theories about why oaks like this sawtooth oak here hang on to their leaves. And so what I want you to do is just pause. Sorry, I'm still getting used to this zooming and everything. So what I'd like you to do is pause this video and write down 2 or 3 reasons why you think that a tree would hang on to its dormant, non-functioning leaves anymore. Why wouldn't it drop them right away in the fall with all the rest of the leaves, instead of causing problems in the spring and having to do a second fall cleanup, as they have to do around here, when all of these leaves fall off of the oaks in our oak canopy. So take a look, and we're going to keep going here, but just pause and write down 2 or 3 reasons why you think that might happen. Or we can just wait and I'll be quiet for a few seconds while you write your answers down. All right, so what answers did you come up with as we take a walk looking at this snowy scenery here? We're going to take a look at another couple of plants that are still hanging on to their leaves. And so one of the thoughts is that the plant is protecting its buds with these lower leaves. Quite often it's the lower leaves. And they're protecting its buds. So what could it be protecting its buds from? So buds are prized winter nutrition for birds and for mammals. So think of deer and squirrels. Squirrels will eat buds too. So it could be that these crunchy, brown, non-nutritious leaves are protecting those buds from being eaten during the winter. So that's one theory. Another theory is that these leaves are protecting the buds from the winter weather. So these buds are tender, they're new growth, sometimes they're swelling when it starts to get warm out, and these leaves may be protecting the buds from the freeze-thaw cycle or from damage from the winter. See all this snow, isn't it incredible? And so that's one theory. Another theory is that the leaves are helping to direct rainwater and snow down to the base of the plant or to the roots where that will be needed. So that's one theory, but I don't know about that theory. But that is one I've come across when I look into marcescence. So there's that. And there's another theory. Here we go into the snow. There's another theory that, see, someone built a snowman. This is very exciting. We encourage snowman building. There's another theory that the leaves hang on and they get kind of beat up in the weather. They get exposed to the wind and the rain and they get thinner. And then the leaves drop in the spring when the plant is getting ready to grow again, and these leaves that have been beat up through the seasons are now ready to decompose faster. And so when they drop to the forest floor or to the ground underneath the plant, they decompose, providing nutrients that the tree needs as it starts its growth for the spring and putting its new leaves on. So that's another theory. And so here we see these are musselwoods, right? And they're hanging on to their leaves, you can see here. And these are the young ones. So you can see almost every branch has leaves on it. And these leaves aren't very palatable to animals that are looking for nutrition in the winter. They're just brown and crunchy. And so they might just pass them right by and not eat the buds. So these young musselwoods are, the same plant, the same species as these trees right here. And as you can see here, these trees have no leaves on them at all. Right, older. For some reason, the older trees don't seem to exhibit the marcescence that the younger trees do. This is true for beech trees and for our oaks a lot of times, or you might just see it on the lower branches. And so So that's just one other winter specific bit of nature that you might see when you're out wandering around. And when you are, we're walking through the woodland gardens now. We don't maintain the gravel paths here in the woodland gardens. There's so much snow, it's so great. One of the things you can do is maybe identify a tree from far away just by the fact that it has its leaves still hanging on it. And so if we take a look down the pathway here, so we're close to Meeting House Road here in the woodland garden. And so if we take a look here, we can see some of those tan, I call it paper bag colored leaves hanging onto a tree. And so we know that that tree is probably in this area a young beech tree. And because the young beech trees are pretty reliable at hanging on to their leaves from top to bottom when they're young. And so we'll go take a look. Here we go, Marcescens. And this plant here. And sure enough, we take a look, we see this is a American beech tree, right? And these nice pointed buds being protected by those brown crunchy leaves. But pretty good chance that if you see a tree looking like this in the woods around you, that it is a beech tree. All right, so we're just going to circle around, take a look at one other garden while we're here, walking around in the snow. The deer have been traipsing through the gardens, of course. Now we get to see everywhere they go. And though we don't maintain the gravel trails in the Arboretum, people have been using it for snowshoeing and for cross-country skiing. So there's a lot of that been going on. Here's another beech tree exhibiting Marcescens. So these leaves will fall off as the new buds swell and the new leaves come on. Those leaves will fall off and fall to the ground and decompose and provide nutrients to the roots of the tree as long as you don't clean up all those leaves. So I am going to just take you, while we're over here, on a visit to where there's evergreens in the Calabarro Conifer garden, because winter really is its beautiful time of the year. I mean, it looks pretty all the time, but especially stunning in winter. And so we have the Conifer garden here. And then we'll take a look at some flowers, because what's better than snow? Flowers and snow at the same time. That's what, I'll tell you. So, greenhouse, you can imagine it's nice and warm and filled with tropical flowers in there. I just want to make a snow angel. You can see how deep the snow is by how the chairs are buried here. You can have a seat in the chairs, cold seat. Conifer garden. All right, now we'll head out and see some flowers. Flowers and snow. It's like the best of both of my worlds, I tell you. If all of a sudden the camera falls, it's because I fell on snow or something. All right. I'm gonna check out. Witch hazels are great for winter blooms. There's some here next to the greenhouse. We have some Witch hazel's blooming. They're small flowers, but there's a lot of them, so it does make it showy. And let's go check one other place. We're going to go check the winter garden, the Albright winter garden, and see what's doing in there. I love walking through the gardens in winter. You get to see the architecture of the plants that's normally hidden by leaves. It's just so nice to be able to see that different structure. Sometimes the trees can almost look like sculptures in the winter. All right. I'm gonna go check on our Gelena witch hazels because they're normally flowering right now. And sure enough, flowers in snow. Look at those. And these are perfectly hardy. They're not native, but they're perfectly hardy here. And you could have flowers and snow at the same time in your garden too. And so with that, and notice that witch hazels also exhibit some marcescence hanging on to their leaves, even after the leaves have gone dormant. And so with that, I'm going to say see you later, and can't wait to see you in the gardens again. Be sure to follow and subscribe to our YouTube page where you have access to all of these videos. And visit us at arboretum.temple.edu/community events to see the wonderful array of programs we have going on through the year, community programs and virtual workshops and that kind of thing. So thank you so much for sticking with us, and we hope to see you in the gardens really soon. Take good care.